What are you the 1% of? I was born with a cardiac rhythm disorder. Normal heart rate for a newborn is like 130 per minute. Mine was like 30. I heard from my mother my case was so rare that several cardiologists from all over the country ditched their conferences to fly to the hospital I was in and to see how to fit a pacemaker into a newborn. Not that I've looked it up, but I've run over a fish in my car. Whenever I tell the story, no one has heard anything like it. I drive a BMW and always use my turn signal, even pulling out of my driveway. I have AB blood, which is found in less than 1% of the population. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games 2008 pole vault. When I was 8 to 11, I had the second highest score in the world. That has most likely changed. Got my wisdom teeth pulled. One side grew back over a year from a fragment left. Dentist published an article about it and was so happy. I was not with another oral surgery. I think it's like 0.1 to 0.5% of women or something, but I have a double uterus. Medically called a Didelphi's uterus. A septum separates my uterus, which kinda made them form into two separate ones, and the septum continues down into the vagina, so I also have a left and right side. Not fun to deal with, but I'm too scared to get the surgery for it. Triple nipple over here. 0.5%, I believe. I guess I'm in the 1% of only having 3 lower front teeth. I actually have an ART X3080. If you have a 7 inches, 18 centimeters, penis, you are in the top 1% of men worldwide. Keep that in mind when everyone you know and on the internet somehow has a 8+ inch long. Everyone is in the 1% when you measure from your taint. When Spotify released listening statistics at the end of 2020, I was on the top 0.1% of Weird Al Yankovic listeners. In top 1% of Google local guides in my area. At the end of Detroit, Become Human, they tell you the percentage of people who got the same ending as you. Mine was 1%. Me and my 11-year-old son Tag teamed a hazard level 5 mission on Deep Rock Galactic, which was meant for a 4-man crew. We beat it from beginning to end in one shot and got an award for it, saying that only 0.65% of players have beaten Hazard 5 from beginning to end. So, some clarity on the mission. It was an elimination mission and we got the twins and the dreadnought. The fireballs the dreadnought shoots had a huge explosion radius, and it was super aggressive, and the twins were moving constantly and their ranged attacks were merciless. I was engineer with submachine gun, proximity mines, and the laser crossbow with the overlock that gives faster reload and extra ammo, and the submachine gun has the overlock where turrets send out an electric shockwave when hit with submachine gun. My son was the gunner class, and I'm not sure what he was running other than the cannon, revolver with exploding bullets, and fire grenades. Much love, my dudes. For Carol. I have small intestinal cancer. The type is the same as colon cancer, but where it's located is less than 1% of worldwide diagnosis per year. But I've signed papers for 11 different oncologists to be able to access my records to see what works, what doesn't, etc., because they just don't get enough examples of it. Kind of hit or miss on procedures to work with, which treatments first, which type of chemo, etc. I've also said that if it ever reaches a point where I'm terminal and common treatments just don't work anymore, I'm willing to go all guinea pig. Depending on exactly where it is, because of the veins coming off of your mesenteric artery to feed the small intestine, it usually isn't operable. So you're strictly on chemo and radiation. If the heavy levels don't do it, then you get to go on low-dose chemo daily for however long it works. Then it eventually doesn't. Currently, according to my last PET scan, the tumors have disappeared. They won't say remission, just that it seems to be dormant right now. I'll take it. I had an ear infection travel up what would have been an otherwise asymptomatic formation of my skull called arachnoid granulation until it finally reached my cranial cavity. It took a literal team of the best doctors, ENT surgeon, neurologist, multiple neuroradiologists, from Northwestern University Hospital and the University of Pennsylvania to first diagnose me and then treat me. I was absurdly lucky to have a friend of the family who is a doctor who was able to call in a favor to get the entire neuroradiology team at UPenn studying my numerous CTs and MRIs. The head of neuroradiology at UPenn told him I have the most unique-looking skull he's ever seen. Talk about damning with faint praise. When they finally had a diagnosis, my auntie pulled my skull CT scan up and said, "Do you see that white spot? That's fluid. That's infection, it shouldn't be there. You're very lucky you haven't contracted meningitis. This had been happening for 10 years, undiagnosed. And do you see this black space here? That's air. That should absolutely not be there. Do you ever fly?" I responded yes, all the time, for work, for concerts, regularly, once a month or more. Well, you absolutely can't fly until this is fixed. Every time you've flown in the last 10 years and the cabin pressurized, that air could have expanded and shifted your brain off of midline, and you'd have been dead immediately, without knowing anything. They removed an L-shaped infected portion of my skull about 2 inches by 6 inches and replaced it with a titanium mesh plate after sewing the tear in my air canal shut. It resolved the problem and I haven't had any issues since. I can now fly. The symptoms were fullness, pressure, and the feeling of fluid in my ears. It lasted years and several ENTs misdiagnosed me. Finally, I asked one to put in a tube, and it drained continuously for a month. The ENT I was going to, not the one who diagnosed me, thought it was a cerebrospinal fluid leak and ordered me to have emergency surgery for a cerebrospinal fluid leak that didn't exist. He had taken a sample of fluid for testing, but demanded I have what amounted to exploratory brain surgery for a condition that didn't exist. I was sitting on an operating bed as they were about to place pre-op antibiotics when I got a call from the aforementioned DR friend of the family, who said, "They don't know what the fuck they are talking about. Leave now." I got so many shit looks from the team of surgeons that had been assembled to cut my brain open to fix a problem that didn't exist. 2 days later, I got a phone call from my ENT saying the results of the fluid sample came back. It wasn't CSF. No apology. No explanation. No nothing. Went to the optometrist recently, and he said I have a uniquely shaped right cornea and said I was in the 1%. Did tests for a degenerative disease that I couldn't remember, but I'm in the clear. Some Latin-sounding disease. Cornos blah blah. The doctor said most people generally have half a portion of astigmatism in their eyes. My right eye has 5 portions. I have an autoimmune disease that's so rare nobody knows what it is. Genetic testing is currently underway to see if I have a recently discovered genetic defect that about 10 people have been diagnosed with. The study, and the link to a story about its discovery and naming. Typing speed. Income. To make it into the richest 1% globally, all you need is an income of around $34,000. I had a life-threatening reaction to a common prescription drug. It literally caused huge patches of my skin to fall off and my internal organs to begin liquefying. This reaction is so rare that they don't even have to list it as a potential side effect. 6 cases have occurred with over 10 million people taking this drug. I don't like to name the drug because the problem was with my body, not the medicine itself. I don't want to scare people away from a life-saving drug that isn't to blame for what happened. I'm fully recovered now, by the way. I'm part of the 1% of people being ambidextrous. I figured I have to be in the top 1% of deaf guitar players worldwide. I heard completely fine for like 25 years and spent 19 years of that to practice guitar playing. Been legally deaf for 3 years now and still can play well. Muscle memory. I kinda want to start a band called death metal or something. I have aphantasia. I can't form images in my mind. If I read a book, for instance, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the characters look like. My brain just doesn't work like that. I found out at 30 that other people actually visualize things in their head. I always thought it was kinda like a figure of speech or something. I was just over 11 pounds at birth and got stuck mid-breach. Head out, shoulders wouldn't push through. Doctors decided that cutting me out would take too long at this point and could kill us both, so they pulled me out. In doing so, they tore all the wiring as it were down my left side of my neck. Unbeknownst to them. What happened was stun-dead growth of my left arm at an angle pointing almost behind me. They had to operate on my shoulder socket, and my hand had gone full-on T-Rex angled, so they broke my wrist and turned it to force it to grow normally. I was in an almost 3/4 torso cast for months as a small kid. Today in my mid-30s, I can't fully outstretch my left arm, maybe a 2 to 3 RD stretch at best. I can't lift it higher than my mid-chest. My wrist is pretty loose, hey now, so my hand wants to naturally flop forward a lot. I can still move around mostly, but I can't push with my left arm all that much. Struggle lifting heavy things. Can't push away to the side of me. Can't drive manual cars, but can drive autos. My arm is also thinner than my right. Due to the muscle development, I had a twitch in a thumb almost like a clock for about 4 years that suddenly stopped. Also have to use my right hand to get my left into the position I want it to be in, because the nerves aren't there to send the signal to move it in certain directions. You normally just move your arms, but I can't, and it's like trying to move a part of you through telepathy. Physio was the only answer, but it barely changed anything after circa 6 months, and I packed that in my early teens because what's the point, etc. It's fucked me up pretty badly mentally, I'd say, even though I'm overall pretty happy. Doesn't affect my work, I can still type etc., but I get aches on my left shoulder blade and shoulder. I can't do push-ups or pull-ups, so don't go to the gym or do sports as it's an obvious disadvantage, so I'm overweight but not massive. I naturally got bullied at school a hell of a lot. I'm so used to hiding it that it's muscle memory now, even though I'm at the stage of my life where I can say, yeah, this is me. Deal with it. But because I don't work out, I stopped swimming or doing anything with my shirt off in public. I'd say yeah, pretty damn rare case. And I don't even know what the condition is called. I need to see a doctor about it as this was 80s when I was born and medicine has changed so much. I'm just so used to being this way, I've never really pushed to get answers. I've thought about it more since the pandemic, but obviously doctors aren't exactly seeing people right now for non-emergency stuff. Yes, I've thought of suing over the years. Top 1% of Pink Floyd listeners on Spotify. I can spin on my ass really fast, like probably around 20 full rotations in one go. I start standing up, then I put my left hand on the ground and I throw my right leg towards my left, Finally, I retract my legs and put my hands on my knees, and I go spinning like a motherfucking Beyblade. I've been doing this since I was 3 or 4. I'm in the 1% for people with narcolepsy. I believe it's 0.05% of America and 0.04% for the world. Mauritians living in the UK. We often refer ourselves as Martians. Type 1 diabetes. It's a shit club. Marathon runners, I guess it's a pretty low percentage of people who've ran one, but I've ran over 40 and still going strong. Targeting being close to 50 by the end of the year. Spades. I am actually in the top 0.06% and used to be number 1 out of 43,000 players. So I'm like one of the top billionaires in the world, but in spade skills, so that earns me about $0. I scored a 99 on the ASVAB, which is graded using a percentile system. I am the 7th generation in my family with the same name. At the end of my name, I legally have a 7. I finished first in Tetris 99 once. I've died and had 6 wisdom teeth, and ironically those two things are related. For context, my heart stopped during my wisdom teeth extraction surgery. I don't remember for how long, but the anesthesiologist said he had the needle of adrenaline in his hand when my heart started beating again. I remember them waking me up and just saying, "You gave us a little scare there," before putting me back under and completing the surgery. After I came to and was sitting in the waiting room, I had to text my dad because I couldn't talk. I think I died. In which my dad obviously freaked out because they never even told him. I'm part of the 1 to 2% with red hair. Except in my house, where I'm part of the 80%. Me and my kids are redheads, my wife is a blonde. Anyone's birthday must be under 1% of the world population. Congrats everyone. Top 0.005% of Simon and Garfunkel listeners on Spotify last year. The 1% who can beat the mobile games. I am 6 feet 8 inches / 203 centimeters tall. I can swallow my tongue. Or rather put my whole tongue in the hole to my nose, where the nose and mouth come together. Apparently my ear doctor said that none of her colleagues believed her when she said she had a patient that could do that, so I had to do it whole she was filming. So she could prove them wrong. Face with tears of joy. Hilarious to have my doctor shove her iPhone in my mouth. Face with medical mask. I own more Bitcoin than 99% of the world population. But then again, you only have to own like $200 in Bitcoin to be in the top 1% of the world population. Haha. I have cerebral palsy. Out of 1,000 babies born, 2 to 4 will have it. Alpha-gal allergy. I was bitten by a Lone Star tick, and now I'm allergic to any kind of mammal meat. Most cases last between 6 to 8 months. Mine appears to be permanent after a decade. Uneasy face. I can't even eat something that's been prepped / cooked on the same surface as beef or pork in restaurants. Waitstaff isn't too fond of me, lol. I'm top 375 of about 1 million players in Beat Saber. Celiac disease. It's estimated that 1% of the population of Canada has celiac disease. Approximate 1 in 114 people. It's always said to be wildly undiagnosed though, so I'm not sure if that is fully true. Reading speed most likely. I have regularly tested between 410 to 425 WPM. Edit 2. Since 86% of the world population can read, about 60 million would be the 1%. I've made 1% or fewer of the comments on this post as of now. My daughter was the first in Canada to have her cord blood harvested for stem cells. They were to be used for a bone marrow transplant for her brother. As a side note, my son was diagnosed with what was then called JCML, a child leukemia occurring in about 0.001% of all childhood leukemias. The survival rate I believe was in the 1 percentile range. Redhead with blue eyes. 0.17%. Highest student debt? $536K. Not anymore, but I was in the top 0.0001 for Lyme infections. 1% of deer ticks carry the bacteria and 1% of cases develop heart block and Lyme carditis. Women's height. I'm 6 feet 1 inch. According to my smartwatch, I'm in the top 1% of step count in the past 7 days. Wild and also boring. Percentage of people who tell the truth online probably. Gray eyes. I'm pretty sure it's like 1% or 2%. Supposedly on Google from what I remember. My lifting total is above 1,500 pounds. I think that's in the 1%. 1% of high school athletes go on to play in college and receive a scholarship. Lego Star Wars. I own about 60 Phase 2 plain clone troopers. Gray-eyed. Always thought they were green, but then they matched exactly with most images of gray eyes. My last name. It's actually such a small number that to put it in a% would be fruitless. My grandfather's parents came to Canada in the 1920s from Eastern Europe. A very Slavic last name. Their children, my grandfather and his siblings, decided to make the name more Canadian. Was a totally made-up name. So up to that point no one else on earth had ever had that last name. I am the 3rd generation with the name, and there are only roughly 50 plus / that have ever lived / living with it. If you Google my last name, I am the top answer, with some cousins. There aren't many fourth-generation males right now, so keeping the name going may be a challenge. Apparently, I'm the only non-Thai person to get arrested and tried in Thai military court. So, less than 1%. I don't recommend, they're super corrupt. People under the age of 30 that don't own a cell phone. I had gastroschisis. Only about 1,800 newborn babies have it each year. Look up more about it, but all I will say is that I no longer have a belly button. There's a country named after my direct ancestor. Gotta figure not too many of you can say the same. I took care of my wife, whom was in a persistent vegetative state for over 3 years at home by myself until she died. I didn't even ask for outside help because I wanted her to know that in no uncertain terms that she was loved 24 hours a day for the rest of Get Life. I fed her, bathed her, changed her, massaged her, read books to her, let her listen to classical music, talked to her non-stop from the time she woke up until she went to sleep, told her how much I loved her at least 20 times a day, brought her to the ER literally 2 to 3 times a month, then stayed by her side for her stay in the hospital, took her out for walks in her wheelchair daily, and said I love you 100 times a day. She passed in her sleep painlessly at 4 p.m. Sunday morning, June 24, 2018. I was by her side, sleeping in my recliner, and felt her pass through me and startled me awake. It was a perfect death to complement a perfect marriage and a wonderful soul. I feel blessed. So my mom's the 1% here. Eosinophilic granuloma Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Approximately 1-2 per million adults end up with the disease. It's where a dendritic cell mutates and starts calling white blood cells to an area, resulting in a lesion. This is a fantastic article about it. What makes it so what the fuck worthy is? 1. She had 1 lesion. 2. It was on the back of her head. 3. It ate through her skull. 4. She was in her 40s. Usually they occur within the first 4 years of life, and also in boys. It doesn't help that she was also in the approximately 9% of folks with non-HPV related cervical cancers. Top 1% on the Reddit challenge, second. Have a Reddit trophy proving that. Pretty certain I'm in the top 1% of people who have accidentally sprayed themselves with bear mace. 3 times, no, I haven't learned my lesson. I have absolute pitch, a form of synesthesia that allows me to identify and recreate any musical note without a reference tone. The rate is supposed to be 1 in 10,000 people, but I'm pretty sure that number is higher in places with tonal languages and in music students. I have a game on my phone which probably isn't accurate at all, but the game says I'm in the top 1%. I'm on level 49,060. At some point the game just repeats levels, so I have the entire thing memorized, huh? I have a syndrome where you have an extra X female chromosome. I have it in my blood, but I don't have any symptoms, and one of the best doctors in the UK said he has never seen or heard of this before. I mean, definitely not 1%, but I had an extra tooth that never surfaced, so it was just chillin' beneath my other teeth for years until I had to get braces, and the guy found it in the x-ray. He was pretty freaked out, lol. I have voluntary nystagmus. Essentially, I can shake my eyes rapidly. Cerebral arteriovenous malformation, AVM. Mine unfortunately ruptured and gave me a stroke at the age of 21.